everybody. Welcome to Connect the Story. Today we have the big cheese. We have Freddy Vasquez here with us, and we're going to get to know him a little better. I know that you know that we have talked about it before, how we always talk about how we are as a industry. We always talk about our profession, but we don't really say who we are, and we don't talk about ourselves. So we're kind of like bringing that into the spotlight, and we're getting to know the person and, you know, their history, their story, their history or what have you. So we're just wanting to know more of the background, and we have Mr. Freddy Vasquez today. I don't want to introduce too much. I haven't asked him too many questions because I wanted to save it for you guys as well. So, Mr. Freddy, let me just ask you right off the bat.
Right now.
If you were to introduce yourself without saying what you do, how would you do it?
That's a great question. My name is Freddy Vasquez, and I love helping people. And that would be like my number one thing. I think that's why I do everything that I do.
You rehearsed it. I get it.
No, you know what's funny is, so today, right, I was out today with a client. Okay. She's running for judge, Lauren Marks. You should vote for her. Right? Do me a favor.
Nice.
But I'm out there talking to her and her father, and they're running her campaign, and we're discussing the video we just dropped for her last week and, all the marketing we're doing for her.
Okay.
And I saw a distinct change in their mannerisms from the first meeting to now, and they were just so much more confident, and they were very happy with everything. They were, just more peppy, right? Because like their shoulders were down when they first announced it, because they were like, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle this? Not that she wasn't qualified, but, marketing's hard, so that was their demeanor that day. And then today, everybody was like, up and talking. And I went back to the office. I was talking to my staff, and I was like, you know what? We're not in the business of marketing. We're in the business of giving our clients confidence, right? Because when you have the confidence to walk outside of your home or your office and you feel just like nothing can beat you down, you feel like nothing can bring you down, you're walking around with some kind of confidence that just makes you just a better person, and your vibes are flowing, so I was thinking about that today. I was like, wow, you saw the way they were in the beginning and how they are now. And it's only been 3 weeks, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I was like, wow, we're in the business of giving people confidence, and we're helping them, right? So it might have sounded rehearsed because I was talking to my staff today, but I realized that today. It sounds crazy, but I was like, oh man, we're not in marketing. We're in confidence building. I said, that's killer. So, and that just goes back to me wanting to really just help people.
And we have had many conversations with leaders in the community, and one thing that always comes up is that service. So leaders serve the community. Leaders actually help. It's more, you see more of togetherness. It's like bringing people together and sharing a little bit of me with you so that you can grow. So you don't see that competition. It's more like, let's help one another. You see more togetherness.
Yeah.
So it's amazing that you bring that up. But speaking of which, you say that you help people with confidence. Do you feel like you have had to build your confidence, or have you always been confident, Freddy?
No, I had to build it up.
Okay.
When I was younger, I was bullied. I was bullied for, I don't know, a long time.
Okay.
Elementary school was a terrible time for me. High school, I feel like high school, I only 11th grade, I think I was finally, not even then. It's funny, 11th grade, I went to this brand new high school. I went to 3 different high schools in 4 years.
Where was this?
Long Island, New York. I'm from New York originally.
Okay.
So 9th grade, I went to St. John's in Astoria, Queens. 10th grade, I went to, where did I go 10th grade? Out on Middle Island, Longwood High School.
Okay.
And then 11th grade, I went to North Babylon High School, which is where I finally met my friends, I would say maybe senior year, halfway through 11th grade. But, even getting there, I remember getting made fun of, just because I was a new kid. But you take first grade all the way through 11th grade, just being bullied.
Okay.
It's really rough. I think children are cruel.
Yeah, especially at that age. It's like, I don't know,
Yeah,
there's something
man.
about it.
So cruel. Just, making fun of me. I've always been overweight, those kinds of things. And,
Yeah.
I was never the cool kid. So you're beaten down for years.
I hear you.
And just beaten down. And growing up in Queens, New York City, man,
That's what I was going to ask.
it's just,
I mean, so Queens, New York
Yeah.
City. So you were born there, or did you?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. So
Moved to Queens.
New Yorker.
Oh, yeah, New York City. I mean, Mr. Met's on my arm.
Yeah, it's like
Big Mets fan.
Yeah. That's so cool. Okay, so you were born and raised in New York. You went to school in New York. So you say that you had to build that confidence.
Mhm.
What did you? Because here's the thing: as a leader, and you said it yourself, we share those experiences and we help each other. We build that confidence for one another. But at some point, we had to do that for ourselves. So what do you think that you use to build yours so that someone else can, if in the same situation, they could probably get some inspiration from it?
I think for me, it was just having a wife and 2 kids.
Okay.
There was no time for whining, and I'll give you a fair warning. I'm a very transparent guy.
I love that.
I don't beat around the bush, and I'm pretty hard on myself.
Okay.
I think that comes from my dad a lot.
Okay.
My dad's awesome. I love him to death. He's the greatest guy. But he was hard on me growing up, and some people might find it as, being detrimental, where I think that was just him teaching me how to be a man. So obviously, I mean, the funny thing is that the earliest memory I have of my dad was Sunday morning. He's from Ecuador, so he was drinking coffee, blasting music, being the classic Ecuadorian. And he told me, being a man is like doing all these other things is not being a man. Fighting or making fun of people, or whatever the case is just none of those things make you a man. What makes you a man is taking care of your family.
Wow.
He said, taking care of your family makes you a man. I remember that. Like, I'll never forget that. So, fast forward all these years later, what are you going to do? So for me, taking care of my family was number one. And I have a wife and 2 daughters. So it's even extra, right? Because there's no sons in that mix. It's just me. So, I didn't have time to, I didn't have time to be, oh, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they're never going to like me. Like, those days were over for me.
I hear you.
So I guess they inspired me to work hard and do the best I can, for sure. But the funny thing is, people think I have all this confidence, where I'm like Mr. Confidence and, nothing bothers you and all these things. And the truth of the matter is I'm still working on it, every day. I still get nervous.
Of course.
I mean, I did a speaking engagement last week and for this cool company, Spots Insurance, that's here local.
Okay.
And I told them, I was like, I was trying to build them up to prepare them for the year. Okay. And I was like, I know I make it sound easy, but standing in front of you right now, I'm shaking.
Of course.
I have butterflies in my stomach. I'm super nervous. I never eat before I do any of these things or drink anything because I just don't want to have the feeling of nausea, So I've just been doing it long enough. I think I make it look easy. But yeah, I work on my confidence every day. There's days where it's just, in the crapper.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's days where I feel like $1 million. So, it's a work in progress. And I think everybody should keep that in the back of their minds. Yeah. I guarantee if you sat down and had a truthful conversation with people like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, or, those guys that are known for, their work ethic and stuff, I guarantee that they'll always say they're confident and all those things. But if you had like a one-on-one sitting at their coffee table, they'd probably tell you, they're probably still getting nervous.
Absolutely.
And I believe that because we're all just humans.
I cannot agree with you more with that, because I believe that if you don't get nervous, it's like you don't care.
Right.
So you get nervous because you care about what's going to happen, because you want it to be right. You want to be do it the right way,
Right.
and you want the good outcome. So that should just shows that you care.
Absolutely.
Now, but you know better, and you have the confidence to say, hey, I know I get nervous. I know that this is happening to me, but I'm still going to do it, which is bravery, because you're doing it in spite of fear, in spite of feeling like that nervousness, but you're getting it done.
Yeah, right. I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I tell some people, I'm like, are you going to die?
Yeah.
But no. All right.
Worst thing, you slip and fall, and then, you have a laugh.
It hurts. Like, as long as you're not dying,
Exactly.
keep going.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. I was speaking with a leader the other day, and she was saying that you're going to do things anyway. Might as well just make it fun. Just enjoy it. And just make it yours, And it's so important to be authentic. So that's probably... It's easier maybe for you. I don't know if maybe you feel that way, but being authentic and being who you are, you're not pretending anything. You're not rehearsing anything. It's just, it's Freddy,
That's the way to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. The first time I ventured off into Berks County was 2016.
Okay.
I moved here in 2009, but I worked in my basement for years. I never had to get out of my house.
Okay.
So in 2016, I finally had to get out and network and meet the community. At my very first networking event, I wore shoes, pants, shirt and tie,
Yes, like
hair different,
9 yards.
Right. And it's, and it's funny. I tell people that was probably one of the most uncomfortable moments of my life. Not that there's anything wrong with that style. It just wasn't me.
Exactly.
And I felt myself just being so fake at this networking event, trying to tell people, hi, I do websites. And I do marketing, and I'm the perfect guy for this, whatever.
Yeah.
And the crappy part was I was dressing as somebody else, and that did not allow me to be authentic at all. And when I wasn't comfortable, it was impossible. But the next networking event I went to, I was like, forget it. I'm just going to go in there with jeans, sneakers, and a hat and flannel. And I went in and it was just myself. And the funny thing is, I didn't really think about what I looked like as much as I was comfortable in my own skin, and being that I was comfortable, I was able to portray myself a lot better. And it's really hard for me to be comfortable in my skin. I mean, the way I look every day, just, it's a thing for me. Like, I know I'm overweight. I'm not, we're not like,
I'm not pretending.
Lying to ourselves here, right? So that's the only, I can tell you right now, truthfully, that's like probably the only thing that bothers me every day.
Okay.
And people don't understand, how hard it is to change that.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, I mean, me taking care of myself and looking good is like, I feel like I have to do extra to do that. But in return, I feel very confident in my skin. I feel very authentic. And I think if you can get past that and be your authentic self, you can explain yourself a lot better and show people that you have confidence in whatever you do and whatever you're selling. Because if you have confidence when you're speaking, people listen.
Absolutely.
They know you're not full of crap.
I remember the one time, I think the first time that I heard you speaking was at a GRCA event. It was about branding and marketing and just basically putting your best face forward digitally, But the way that you portrayed yourself made me feel, or us, it was a group of us, he knows what he's talking about. It's like I feel better. Like I know that what he's saying has value. And the way that he's saying it, it's simple to him, but it's making sense in my head because he knows it so well that not only does he understand it, he can explain it to someone else in layman's terms.
Thank you.
So we appreciate it. That was an amazing time that we
cool, man. I'm glad you had a good time and learned something.
Absolutely. We've been, ever since that day, I know that you've been on the radar. It's like we always see you somewhere, but that day was like, oh, okay, there's a difference between this and that and the website, and it's better. We learned a lot.
Right on. That's awesome. That's all I could ask for. Is somebody gets something from something I say, and it also tells me I'm not full of crap. So,
well, you're doing something right.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And then okay, so starting from New York, just moving a little, back. So you started in New York. you went to school. You graduated in New York. You went through
Yeah.
Okay.
I went
You
to
went
college and all that.
college.
Mhm.
Okay, so after you graduated high school, what did you decide, or how did you come to see, hey, you know what, this is what I like, this is what I enjoy, this is my passion, or whatever, let me chase this. What was it, and how did you come about that?
I actually went to school to make albums.
Okay.
I wanted to be an audio engineer.
Okay.
Yeah, so I went to school for that, and I did that for 4 years. But I had to have a major because they didn't consider that a major; it was a minor. So I had a major in business management.
Okay.
So I guess I did that in a small way, and I started working in the music business. When I got out of college.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, 2 or 3 years, I guess, after college, Napster was happening.
Yeah.
And
that time, right?
everything. Man. I mean that. They weren't making as much money as they used to.
Yeah.
So things changed, and
Absolutely.
I went into retail. I was doing retail for years.
Okay.
This whole marketing website thing, I fell into it.
Okay.
I had no real desire in the beginning to just say, I'm going to make this my job.
Okay.
I thought I was, it was just like a side thing I did. I did a lot of designs and stuff for bands because I was in a band for 15 years. So that's all I knew was like band people.
Okay.
And I would start doing MySpace pages for bands. That was a long time ago. And I left New York in 2008 because it's just too expensive.
I hear you.
So we left, but we went to Florida first.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing was, we went to Florida first, and 2 weeks after I moved down to Florida, the jobs we had lined up, the place closed.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks after that, I'm in Florida. I'm by myself. I'm with Jill, my wife, and the kids. And, she was like, hey, you're always doing this graphic design online thing. You should probably do this for real. Give it a shot. She took a crappy telemarketing job.
Okay.
Just to cover the bills.
Yeah.
And that's where it came from. Right there, it's like, well, I got a wife, I got kids. What am I going to do? So I started doing MySpace pages, and the rest is history, I guess.
I like what you're saying, and then and all I can think about is grit. Is the fact that you are doing something that you enjoyed, and then everything changed. But it's not like, oh, everything changed. That's it. What am I gonna
Right.
do then? Not doing anything. But then again, you made moves. You moved to Florida. You try to make it. You had a job lined up. It's more like, okay, I'm still trying, because I got my family.
Right.
And then, making ends meet, and then creatively, I mean, your wife gave you that idea, but then you took it and you rolled with it and you made something out of it, which is amazing. So that shows a lot of, again, bravery and grit, and that feeling of I must go on, because I bet it was hard. I mean, I can't even imagine. It's like I'm moving to a whole different state. Probably don't know anybody, and then it's like, oh, you know what? Sorry, not happening anymore.
Yeah.
It must have been.
It was very hard.
Yeah.
I mean, you're leaving your whole life.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people tend to not realize that, when people make crazy moves like that, that can really cause a ruckus in your life.
Absolutely. Sometimes you can't even come back because there's nothing to go back to.
Right. And I never went back to New York as far as living there.
Okay.
I left to Florida, and it was different, man. I left my whole life in New York. Everything, and my one daughter, Anne, she wasn't with us when I went down there because, I had my daughter with another person. And Jill had her daughter with another person.
Okay.
So when we met, we already had, our kids.
Okay.
So I had to fly back and forth every month to see Ange, which was, it was rough. I felt bad. That's one of those things in my life that, will forever haunt me, I guess. Having to leave for a year, fly back every month, lying to myself that, Ange would be fine if I left. I'd see her every month, it'd be fine. And, so many years later, I'd feel like I still suffer from the consequences of doing that.
Okay.
Again, very hard on myself.
As a dad, I can understand.
That's how it feels,
Yeah.
So, that was a rough time, but At the same time, I try to tell myself that 1 year is, I guess maybe the test or the thing that had to happen for me to move forward and do what I had to do. Because a year later, we moved to Wyomissing, Pennsylvania. Jill did a lot of research. We checked out a bunch of places, but she figured out this had a good school district and this was close enough for me to drive to New York and see Ange every weekend, which is what I started doing when I came back. I would see her every weekend. So
you got into the Wyomissing school district.
Yeah, Wilson.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
right on. Because I live like right over there.
Okay.
Drexelwood.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I know where you live. I live close by. I live in West Lawn.
Oh, right on. Yeah, I'm right over there, man. My house is one of the houses that line the park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I love that park. It's such a cool idea. Like a park in the middle of like the house.
The neighborhood, yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, when you walk by the playground, the white fence.
Okay.
That's my house.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. So
it's a really nice area.
Thanks, man. Yeah, the kids found that park one day. They came back from walking around. They were like, "We found a secret park." Like,
it is like
they're
a
like,
secret
"You
park.
can't get there."
Yeah, that's true.
And so we went walking with them one day, and I was like, "Holy cow! There's this like whole park here."
Yeah.
And then I think a month or so later, the house went up for sale, and we thought we could never buy a house. And we went to a mortgage company, and they said, "Yeah, you can buy the house." So we bought it. And we've been there ever since 2013. I moved down.
I mean, isn't it funny? And I don't know if this has happened to you, but when you really want something or when you are after something, for some reason, somehow things line up. It's like, I don't know how to call it.
You manifest it.
It's crazy. It's like, okay. And it's a desire, I would say, from the heart. It's not just with anything. It's like you really want something and then things just start lining up and things start happening, even when you think you're not. Yeah.
Well, I feel like that's the energy, right?
Okay.
The universe.
Yeah.
I'm not a big religious guy. I grew up Catholic. I was an altar boy, the whole thing.
I mean, you grew up Hispanic.
Right. I knew I was in church every Sunday.
Of course.
So, I did that for so long, but I started to feel like, spirituality is probably more the route I take. I'm more into energy.
I hear you.
And what you put out is what you get back.
I hear you.
And, I feel very, man, let me tell you, dude. I mean, I feel so fortunate for everything in my life. Even though I'm a big work hard guy, you're talking about grit, you can't be, you can't be weak. You have to be strong every day of your life. And it's hard. It's very hard to do that. But I still feel like you get out what you put in, right? And it's not just work. It's also how you are to people.
Absolutely.
And I think, I could have went two ways, man. Let's be honest. I got bullied for geez, 15 years, whatever the math is. Yeah. I could have been like, F the world.
Of course.
Screw everybody. I hate everyone. Don't bother me. And I was like that for a little while.
Yeah.
I was very, very angry.
Of course.
It just sounds crazy, but I wore a hoodie and jeans. I shaved my head. I just didn't care about anything. It's like, no me joda.
Yeah, like just let me be.
That's it, and listening to music is, I think, what started to change me. And working at a bookstore with all these cool people started to change me. And I started to see how if you were just a cool person, you attract the vibes you put out, right?
That's true.
So I think that's, kind of what happened. And, with the house, I tried to put out good energy and receive good energy. And
it worked?
Yeah, I feel like, and manifesting is such a big thing. I know a lot of people read this book called The Secret.
Yeah.
And I read it, and I know a lot of people poo-poo it. I'm like, if you poo-poo it, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like that's your prerogative. But for me, it made total sense.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't asking for anything.
Mm-hmm.
I was just putting out good vibes and expecting good things to happen. Like, my building. We had an opportunity to purchase the building that I now own with my wife.
Yeah.
And, Susie Ray owned that building.
Okay.
And she came up to me one day. She's like, "Hey, you want to buy a building?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And she's like, "No, for real. Do you want to buy this place?" And it was in February because I only remember because the memory came up in my Facebook the other day. Because I had some event with the SBRA and she was there, and that's when she asked me.
Okay.
And I'm like, "All right, sure." We had lunch. We, agreed on a price and everything. And the crazy thing about that is she never listed it.
Okay.
You know, like she literally just came up to me and said, "Hey, do you want this?" You know, and I'm like, "Yes, but
Sure.
there's no way I can afford this. How can I afford a building on Head Avenue in Wyomissing, Pennsylvania?" But I asked my friends for help. You know, I asked Russell Farbier. She's a great friend of mine. I was like, "Hey, Russ, can I do this?" He's like, "What's the worst that happens? You don't get it?"
Yeah,
He's like,
it's like
"You're just back to where you are. Just go
Exactly.
for it." You know, and all these things were happening, right? All these roadblocks were happening. And then I had Robin Ream at Tompkins Bank. You know, she started talking to me and she went to bat for me. You know, the bank was going to say, "No, we're not going to give you this loan." And I started looking for other avenues.
Okay.
And she went up to the person, I guess her superior, whatever you want to call it. And she was like, "I know this man. He will pay every month this mortgage without a problem. His business is doing great. Like he's an outstanding member of me." I don't know what she said to this person, but she said all these things.
Yeah.
And they called me up and said, "You know what? We normally wouldn't do this loan.
Wow.
But we're going to give it to you based on, you know, what Robin said. And, yeah, I guess other people, whatever the case is, you know, we're going to give you the loan."
Wow.
And I mean, that's wild, dude.
Absolutely.
Like if Robin doesn't say anything,
Yeah,
I don't have this building.
that's true.
You know, if I don't have the deposit in the bank, I don't have this building. I mean, I literally went to the bank that day before closing and I pulled out every penny. Yeah. And people think, "Oh, well, you know, you pulled out every penny." Like, you know, no, like for real. Like, when I took it out, it said 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. I was empty.
Yeah.
And I gave them this cashier's check. And I sat at this table and Susie was there and we exchanged hands and me and my wife bought a building, you know, and it was the day before my daughters graduated high school.
Wow.
You know, and it was just, you know, like, man, like, holy cow, dude. You know, like I bought a building from a guy who had no job in 2008 to a house and then a building with a business. I'm nobody special. I'm just Freddy Vasquez, man.
But you dared. And then that's another thing that I find as a quality of leadership is the fact that you're willing to take those risks. It's calculated risks. It's not like you're going to be doing something crazy, but at least, you know, you're putting it out there and you know what you can get out of it. Like, and daring. But I can resonate so much with you because you went from New York to Florida. I came from the DR. So everything that I knew, everything, my family, my cousins, my aunts, my mother, my brother, everybody, I just left to a completely different country. And I was living in New York because I feel like everybody that comes to the States,
They always go there.
They always land in New York somehow for some reason. And then they just branch out. So,
where'd you go in New York? Where are you from?
The Bronx.
Right on.
So I was
Are you a Yankees fan?
No, I mean, I have baseball in my blood, but you know. But it's like I keep remembering it, and then I just remember, and I feel like the problems that I have today were my dreams 5 years ago.
Right on.
So I was living with my family. It was 4 of us, and we were living in the living room. And now it's like, okay, yeah, oh my gosh, I gotta pay the mortgage. Yeah, I gotta pay the car. Yeah, I gotta pay insurance. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. But dude, you've come a long way. Yeah. So the fact is that just being grateful for that is a big part of not falling into life is so hard, I can't do this anymore. Yeah. It's being grateful and acknowledging that you have come a long way. You have made progress. It's just so hard to see because every day you get something, you know, a new challenge, you know, you get a phone call, you get an email, and it's like, oh my gosh, like what now? But I mean, if you are grateful and you remember those things, that they help you through those tough days, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think you have to be grateful for everything. I think that's how you get, you know, more of that good energy.
Exactly. Yeah. It's more of that good vibe. It's like, you know, I have grown, I have achieved, I have received. So it's like, let me just put that vibe out there, and then your day gets better, even though you were feeling like crap like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, I mean, you know, giving back in some way every day will help you get through like the worst times.
Yeah.
You know, and then those times are going to happen, man. They're going to happen. They're never going to stop happening. You know, something bad's always going to happen, and
Absolutely.
it'll be out of your control 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
And you have to learn how to deal with them. But I feel bad for a lot of the kids today.
Yeah.
Even my kids included. I think they see a lot of people being successful in like 5 minutes, and social media.
And
now, listen, I can't talk crap about social media.
no, of course,
it's part of my living.
Yeah, but you know how to do it the right way, and you know what all the dangers about it as well.
Yeah,
because that's your bread and butter.
Yeah.
So yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, they make it look easy.
Yeah,
they make it look easy, and I feel like a lot of the youngins, because I'm an older man now, they fall into that trap.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to do this and I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to be fine. And it's like, okay, is it possible? Sure.
Absolutely.
There's always, lightning in a bottle. Things happen. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. Absolutely. Chances of it happening to you are slim.
Very slim. Yeah.
Right. So working hard is a thing that I tell you, even Derek Jeter said it. He's like, hard work's going to beat talent every day of the week.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I think if the young people would realize that, they would come to find that they're going to be ahead a lot quicker than they think.
Yeah. Because
everybody today is looking for the easy way.
Absolutely.
Right? And normally you'd be like, well, these kids, they should be working hard, and, what happened to this generation? And then I stop and think to myself, well, if everybody worked hard, it'd be really hard for me to get ahead. So true. It's like, well, if you want to take the easy road, go for it.
I mean, but then it's sad that just to stand out, all you got to do is actually do what you're supposed to do, and then a little extra, and then all of a sudden you're extraordinary.
Right. I think the thing we're lacking is patience.
I was just thinking the same thing, because right now the kids, we had someone here that she has such a brilliant mind, so many ideas, but it felt like pushing, like it has to happen now.
Yeah.
Now. Mm-hmm. It's like, I want this life, and I want it this way, and I want it now. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that generation came up with the idea that, it's just light work. I mean, you just go to college, you get your degree, and then as soon as you're out, then, that's it, you're set.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and we all know that something like Napster might happen, or, there's many different things that might change. And I feel like our generation, our new generation, is not prepared to handle that no in your face.
Yeah, because I think a lot of them were growing up with participation trophies, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think you and I connect on that level because we're from the Latino community.
Yeah.
And our parents don't do that.
We don't do that here.
No, man, they don't do that. And they'll bring you down harder than the person that brought you down. But it's not because they want to make you feel bad. It's because they know, like, life will knock you down. And then while you're down, it'll knock you again.
Absolutely.
And if you're not prepared to handle that, you will quit, and you will make things worse, and you'll blame everything else but yourself.
Yeah.
And you'll go down that path of God knows what.
Yeah.
You need to learn what it feels like to lose, because when you finally know what it feels like to lose, you'll never want to feel that again.
Oh, absolutely.
And then you want to win. And then you'll do anything you can to win.
Absolutely.
And that's why they do that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's just a lot of that, like, everybody's got to feel good. Like, it's really like, I'm not a big fan of that.
Yep. No, I mean, I get it. You're trying, you're what have you, but it doesn't feel like a real win. It feels like, I showed up. That shouldn't be a prize, because 80% of the job is showing up, but you have to put in that 20%.
Right. And if everybody gets a trophy, nobody's going to put in that extra.
Exactly.
It's not that I'm not trying to build up your confidence. I want to build up your confidence.
Absolutely.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I can't do it at a price that's going to be detrimental to your future. You have to know where that fine line is.
Absolutely.
Everybody winning, it's dumb. It's funny. I have a whole thing of trophies at my house. I think like later on in my life, we got for, I guess you could say, just being on the team.
Okay.
I never put those things out. I don't think I have them anymore. I think they're in the trash at this point.
What team? What sport?
It was basketball and soccer.
Okay.
Mostly soccer.
Yeah.
but it's like, I'm like, oh, nobody cared.
Yeah.
It's because I was on the team this year. We didn't win anything. I was like, give me a break with this stuff. I get it. It's nice to see it, nice to have. But then when you finally realize what it means, get out of here with that.
Yeah.
It's really not good for people. You really need to know what it's like to lose
Absolutely.
for you to become better in the future.
How do you learn if you don't make mistakes,
Absolutely.
Oh.
I failed before. I used to have another business, a t-shirt business.
Oh, yeah?
I thought it was great. I loved doing it. I was like, this is going to be awesome. This is going to work out well.
Nuh-uh.
Failed. I failed big time. But
Yeah.
And it was, you know what? It was good to fail. It was humbling to fail, to see like, well, you know what? I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. I should have did this.
Exactly.
I should have did this. And I learned it all. I realized what I did wrong. And your failure now becomes educational, becomes a life lesson.
I don't know who it was that said it. I don't know if it was Mandela or someone. They said, I never lose. I either win or I learn.
Yeah, buddy.
And that's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everything that happens bad to you is something that you can learn from.
Absolutely.
And you'll never do it again,
Mm-hmm.
which is why a lot of the times I let people fail on their own, quote unquote fail, because I want them to know what it feels like. I want them to know what happened and go, I'll never do that again.
I seriously believe that people will listen and they will hear the message when they're ready. So sometimes you are not ready until you do lose.
Absolutely.
So sometimes you might feel like with your daughters, you can tell them something. They're like, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. And then they don't, they go, and then you say, it's like, I told you we're going to fall from that tree. So it's like, unless it happens, that you don't really have it as a life lesson. But once it happens, it's like, okay, you know what? This happened to me. I was warned. Let me, next time, I'll just like pay attention.
Maybe listen to
Just
that next
in
time.
case,
Yeah, dude. That happens a lot. A lot of times. I mean, it's happened to Ann, it's happened to Adri, which those are my kids. But, you have to have those things in life to just move you forward. There's nothing, around that. People don't, man, they just don't freaking listen, and that's why I think a lot of the times when I tell people, you don't really need to go to school. A lot of the times, everything I learned here, everything I've done is because I had to.
Yeah.
And going down that road of learning on your own and going against maybe the system that you were brought up in, even cooler things happen. I would definitely get into that. I mean, I went to school for none of this.
Yeah.
None of it. I went to school for business management. They didn't teach me web design or marketing or none of those things.
Exactly.
Things I learned on my own because I went ahead and went for it and learned on my own. And I also feel like I went down this path, and I don't think it has anything to do with what we were just talking about. So then my brain's just fried.
I mean, and it's funny that you say that, because nowadays we have, in the history of humanity, now is when we have most access to information.
Oh, yeah.
So you could just go in and then just find something. And I was just talking about the fact that people in other cultures, they actually learn the language so that they can have access to more information.
Yeah.
So people that are Spanish speakers that never set foot in the US, for example, they learn the language just so that they are able to get access to all of those resources that they wouldn't have otherwise. So I think that now the fact that you even speak the language, it puts you in a position that is just to win,
Right on.
And the information is out there. All you got to do is look for it and practice it.
No, it's such a great time we're living in.
Absolutely.
It just gets better by the day.
That's so true, and easier.
It does get easier.
Yeah, I mean, challenges are different, but then you get more tools. So, but let me ask you this though. Now that we're talking about listening and different things, what would you say is the best advice you've ever received? I know you might need a minute.
Now, you know what?
Yeah.
It was always say yes and then figure it out.
I think that's the Hispanic way. It's
Probably.
it's like, just say yes, you figure it out.
Absolutely. Because back in the day when you started the business, I remember talking to this gentleman. I just remember his name, Chris Unusual, right? And I called him. I was like, "Hey, man, do you know a person that can do this?" He's like, "No, but just go online and find the person that can do it." I'm like, "All right," because this client called me and they want me to build this thing. He's like, "Well, did you say yes?"
Ooh.
I'm like, well, no, not yet. He's like, you never say no.
No, don't say no. It's
You say yes. And you either find somebody to
Yeah.
do it or figure it out yourself.
Absolutely.
I'm like, you're absolutely right. And that was like in my early days, maybe like 09 or 10 or something like that. And from that point forward, I was like, yeah, you're right. I would constantly look for solutions.
Yeah.
Whenever somebody asked me to do something, they're like, oh, can you do this? I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
And, I figure it out afterwards.
And you learn something, and then you're going to encounter the same thing, and then now you're going to have the tools to do it even faster and better.
Yeah, and then you charge more.
Exactly.
And that's at the end of the day, that's, what you're trying to do when you run a business. But, yeah, that was probably one of the best things I ever learned. Like, you always say yes and figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's priceless.
Yeah, dude.
So let me ask you this. It's more of a personal thing. You were talking about your younger self. If you were able to talk to your 20-year-old self today, what would you tell him?
Oh, start earlier.
Yeah?
Start earlier. I started this business out of necessity.
Okay.
Right. And I was 30 years old. And I feel like those initial first maybe 8 to 10 years was, the music business or doing retail, or I got to figure this out, or whatever the case is.
Okay.
I'd probably say start earlier. Now, it might not be the best advice because, of course, in retail, I met my wife.
Okay.
So all those great things happened. But I guess, what I mean by start earlier is, get some more courage sooner than later, because I like to compare starting your own business or doing things that are different or risky to going into a pool.
Okay.
Right. So when you're there and you're standing next to that pool, right, what's the first thing you do? You put your toe in.
Yeah.
Hey, que frio.
Yeah.
It's very cold, right? It's very cold. Then you spend so much time putting your foot in.
Yeah.
And then you got your knees in. And then before you know it, half hour's passed and you're only up to your waist.
Yeah.
Right. When you know damn well that if you just jumped in that pool and gave yourself 30 seconds, you'd get acclimated, you'd be totally fine, and you start having a great time. Okay.
That's true.
So now here it is in life, or for me, it's in business. Don't spend so much time thinking about, well, if I do this bad thing's going to happen. I'm screwed. If I go do that, how am I going to pay for that? This is a terrible idea. I'm out.
Yeah.
The human condition is so amazing, and people never give themselves enough credit. Like, ever. Yeah. They always think, I can't do that. That is the first thing out of their mouths. Yeah. I can't do that. Let me tell you something, people. I am not special. Okay, I'm just a guy who had to figure some things out because he had a family. And had I just jumped in that pool, and just started right away and figured all this out, I don't know where I'd be today. I could be bigger. I could have more people. I could have more free time to myself because I'm not working as hard anymore. Okay. I don't know. Yeah. But when you jump in and figure it out, I'm telling you, you're going to figure it out. You're going to sink or swim, right? Yeah. You're not going to sink. If your brain's in sinking mode, you're going to sink, right?
Of course.
But I'm telling you, when you're in that pool and you're freezing your butt off, you're like, oh my God, it's so cold, it's so cold. And then you're like, oh, it ain't so bad. Mm-hmm. That's human condition, man. That's true. When I was working out of my house still, I was sitting on my couch on a Saturday. I looked at my wife. I was like, I'm going to get an office tomorrow. And then she was like, okay. And I found an office. I think it took us 2 or 3 days. Okay. And I literally doubled all my bills. Right? Double, because I had a house. Yeah. I was paying a mortgage. I was working out of my basement. Had nothing to do. Doubled my bills in one day. Right? Yeah. And the first thing that comes to mind is, oh my goodness, you're crazy. How are you going to figure this out? How are you going to pay for everything? Yeah. You're going to fail. The business is going to close. Or you can just say, all right, this is what I need to make. How do I get there? Yeah. Networking, talking to clients you already have. Going door to door if you have to. You have to figure out what you need to do and whatever you have to do to make that first month's payment. Then when you figure that out, okay, it was actually pretty easy. Yeah. You know how many people I've talked to that I've had to tell them just go and freaking do it? Yeah. A million times, man, I've done this. And then a year later, they're just like, Yeah, that was so easy. I don't know why I was so scared. I'm like,
Yeah,
dude.
it is.
Like, are you gonna die? No. Then go do it.
Absolutely.
You know, and I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, it works out.
I like that. I think I read it in Rich Dad Poor Dad. That he says basically, you know, people think of no, I can't do this, and when you switch from no, I can't to how, it just flips everything in your brain, and then you start finding ways.
Absolutely.
So it's like you're not thinking no, I can't do this. You're thinking is how can I make this possible, and then there comes inspiration, there comes creativity, and all that good stuff that actually makes it happen.
And talk to other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife was one of the biggest, she's my biggest fan, but she's also,
That's a blessing.
oh, absolutely. And I'm her biggest fan. It goes back and forth, you know.
That's great.
But she was one of the first ones that says, you know, you have to have maintenance plans with your websites. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, you're building websites for people, and then they're leaving. It's like, oh, well, I charge them every year for hosting. She's like, okay. She's like, but who's going to take care of that website?
Exactly.
You know, who's going to do all the updates they need? I'm like, oh, well, usually people just want to take over their website and they just do it. And she was like, no. She's like, you got to figure out how to get them to sign up for your maintenance. And you start getting paid every month. You know, residual income, right?
Yeah.
Every month, boom, 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 boom. And I was like, oh, you know what? You're right. That's actually a great idea.
Absolutely.
And just that alone in my business covers everything we need to cover for the month.
Wow.
Just that.
Wow.
So everything else that we do
Profit
is extra.
Yeah.
It allows us to build the business. It allows us to hire more people. Like that whole mindset and you know, and changing of my business to have that service allowed me to grow, you know, and that's from talking to other people.
Yeah.
You know, so like, yeah, take the risk, do the things you want to do. Like I said, I'm not special, but I talk to someone, you know, and my wife's just like, you should do that. And that changed everything. You know, my logo got changed to my face and everything because on my friend, Dr. Bill, he was Dr. Bill Moss. He was like, yo, man, you're the brand, not like just FXV digital design. Like I just had 3 words. I didn't even have anything with that. He's like, you have to figure out how to make you in there.
Okay.
And I literally did that, showed it to him first, you know, after my wife, and he was like, perfect. And I changed my whole brand after that.
Wow.
Because I listened to him.
Yeah.
You know, like those are the things, is like listening to other people. They're not sitting there to watch you fail. They're not sitting there to watch you fall. They're just like, hey, man, you should do this. And not every piece of advice is great, but
Exactly.
just listen though.
Yeah.
And those 2 things are huge for me. Now, I mean, you see my logo everywhere, that freaking face with the hat,
Yeah.
you know, and the maintenance keeps us afloat. I never have to worry about, you know, keeping the lights on.
I have a question for you, and just to bring you up this perspective, actually. So, do you believe that is just it, like our perspective? Because decisions that we're gonna make are based on what we see and what we know.
Right on.
So it's funny to see how we make the mistakes or not take better decisions or try new things because we say, oh no, if I do that, it's gonna go, you know, sideways. But then when you actually listen to someone and you know, okay, you know what, just for giggles, let's do it. And then it works out amazing. So not only are you taking risks by doing what you think that you should do, but then also you're humble enough to know that you don't know everything.
Yeah.
And you're taking advice from someone and actually listening to it. But I love the fact that you mention it. Sometimes there's good advice, there's bad advice. How would you know the difference? Like, how do you think? I know it's a hard question.
Yeah.
It's a really hard question. But what do you think that you do to know, okay, I'm going to take this and I'm going to apply it, or this, I'm going to just move it to the side? Because leaders come in every shape, form, size. There's good leaders, there's bad leaders, but they're leaders nonetheless. So they could lead you in a really bad way, or they could lead you into greatness. So what would you say to someone young? It's like, okay, this is advice that you probably should follow.
Well, if you're young, I would. That's a good question.
I know it's hard. It's like it makes you.
I mean,
think.
For me now, I go with my gut,
Okay.
but I'm also 46 years old.
Okay.
So I've been doing this for over 25 years.
Okay.
So I feel like I know a few things.
Okay.
So if I'm young and somebody's giving me advice, I would probably, number one, listen to what my gut says.
Okay.
I think at the end of the day, you know, if you hear this advice and you're like, man, that's a good idea, like your body feels good about it and you feel it, like, all right, go for it, right?
Yeah.
But if you get something and somebody says, and your body's just like, I don't know about that, then you might want to A, not do it, or B, ask a few other people for their advice. Okay. Preferably people that are older and that have done said things themselves.
Absolutely.
You know, you and that never stops. Now, when you're young, you have to find the pride to do that because when you're young, you think you know everything.
Exactly.
Which I'm guilty of it.
Yeah.
You know, when I was young, I thought I knew everything.
Yeah.
It took me a lot of my pride had to go away when I asked my wife a lot of things in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? I'm like, why would I ask my wife these things when she knows nothing of marketing?
Yeah.
Why would I ask her anything? What does she know?
Yeah.
How would she know anything? Well, that's stupid.
That's ego.
Yeah, that's all ego. I started asking her everything. She actually gets disappointed if I don't show her things. It's like, you didn't even show me that. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, but I knew this was cool. Like, I wasn't really worried about this one. I give you the hard things, which is true. Like, if I know something's good, like, I'm like, all right, I'm cool. But yeah, man, you got to let that go and just ask people. So, one, if you hear something that makes a lot of sense to you and your gut says, yeah, I say go for it.
Yeah.
But if you hear something you're not really into and your gut's like, either A, don't do it, or B, ask a few other people that are older and see what they say, you know, and then base it off that. But I mean, for me, just got to feel right. Yeah. And there's been a lot of that in my life, a lot of feel right things that have cost me thousands upon thousands of dollars, but they worked out. They work out in the end somehow. Okay. I'm telling you, like branding wise, it's everything I've ever done, I would never change from a branding perspective. Everybody just, the fact that you're even sitting here asking me to be on your podcast. Yeah. And you said you watched me talk. Yeah. And you were, you know, inspired somewhat by this talk and you knew you had to have me in here and talk to me. Yeah. That's because of all the branding I did beforehand. Absolutely. You know, all the personal branding not in the logo, branding in what's the first thing that people think about when they hear my name. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So all that crazy branding I ever did led me to sit here just in front of you. Absolutely. On this show. Yeah. On this podcast. So, yeah, you know, I mean, my brain fried again.
No, you're good. But that's really, really, really good advice. And I feel like, I think that is kind of like where I'm going to say your dad, because there's always this figure that, you know, is always like your moral compass kind of. Yeah. And then they can show you and then they can give you that advice and probably tell you like, hey, you know, just ask questions. Don't think you know everything. That's so I think we know we all need that person. And then when the time comes, it'll click. Because sometimes at the moment we don't listen, but then again, after a while, it's like, oh, wait, but they told me this. Let me just apply that here. So words are not lost.
No, man. No, it's true, man. And it's even more than your parents. It's other people in your life. Yeah. They tell you all kinds of things, you know, and either you choose to retain it or you don't. But, you know, and I think that all comes back to the vibe you put out. Yeah. Right. If you put out that really good vibe, positive vibe, you're going to attract those people in your life. And the cool thing about that is when you get into these situations like you were talking about, when you need to make a hard decision, when you need to ask for some advice or, you know, you're looking to go down a certain path and have no idea if I should go left or right. Yeah. Having those positive people around you with that same vibe and energy, they'll help you lead you to the way you got to go. Absolutely. You know, and that's why it's so important that you retain the positive, but you also get rid of the negative. Yeah. And for me, 2025 is the year of getting rid of negative energy. I like that. You know, and I don't talk crap. I don't say this person is terrible. I don't do any of that. I just go, okay, you do that. I do this. Yeah. We will mutually part and I will move on with my life. And
Absolutely.
I wish you only the best. And by doing that, you tend to just feel better overall every day.
Yeah.
And you just surround yourself with just more positive energy. But you need to kill that negative, man.
Absolutely.
If you don't take the time to kill that negative energy, it's going to be really hard for you to accomplish anything.
It's baggage. It just weighs you down.
Yeah, man. And what's crazy is, and they may not even know that they're doing this to you, but they tell you a lot about their negative baggage, right? And they almost try to make it yours.
Yeah.
And then that stuff brings you down.
Absolutely.
It's like watching the news. Don't ever watch the news.
It's like,
That is the worst thing you could ever do.
Everything is
And I learned that so many years ago. I learned that 20 years ago. I was at some conference, and a gentleman on stage was like, okay, think about the worst thing that could happen to you in your life.
Yeah.
Like just the worst thing that would make you so sad, and you felt like you would want to die yourself, and you'd be so depressed. He's like, okay, put your arm out. I'm like, I did. He's like, now the person next to you, push down on it. My arm went. I lived.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, now think about the thing that makes you most happiest in this world. Things that you want to accomplish. All your goals, great things. Put your arm out. Push it down. It didn't budge. And that test alone from over 20 years ago, that told me I need to stop watching the news.
Yeah.
And I need to get rid of all the negative in my life. Unfortunately, it took me 20 plus years to finally get to a point in my life to say, okay, I'm going to finally do it this year.
Yeah.
But holy cow, man, let me tell you, the negative energy in a room, you'll be able to figure it out and find it. And the second that's removed, the whole place will feel lighter. And as a leader, if you're a leader, a community leader, a business leader, whatever it is, it's one of your jobs to find that in your whole place and exterminate it.
Absolutely.
Right away. And so I don't know who said this, but somebody said this right away. They said, hire slowly, fire quickly.
Mm-hmm.
You need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, I still see it to this day.
Yeah. I'm an employer too. I know.
Yeah,
what man. It's
It's
bad.
wild.
It's crazy how one person can kill a whole vibe, and it takes a little bit of like that, just do it quickly. It's like get it overdone quickly, because if you just let it fester, it's just it could bring down your whole shit.
And what's crazy is I've seen situations where the person is actually not a bad person.
No.
Has nothing to do with them being a bad person. They're just so negative. You're just like, what is going on? Like, why are you so negative?
Yeah.
You know, and we gotta let that go.
Yeah.
Man. It's an unfortunate thing we have to do as leaders, but boy, I mean, I've literally seen it to where the person will walk out of the room and they go home for the day, and everybody's just like,
oh,
I'm like, holy cow, man. You're just like, whoa, it's that heavy in here. Yes, it can get that heavy.
You hear them come in the morning, and you hear the stomp, stomp, stomp. It's like, oh, okay, this person's here.
You're like you again.
But there's always also that person that just lights them.
Absolutely.
You know, when they come in,
you can't wait for them to walk.
Exactly. It's like, okay, please just stay around. Don't go nowhere.
Yeah, man. I always try to keep them happy. I always try to do whatever they want. If they ask for something, I give it to them if I can.
Absolutely.
You know, because I want that positivity around. And the crazy thing is, they could technically be the person with the least amount of skill, right? Compared to everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're such a valued member of your team just because of the energy they bring.
Freddy, it's the glue. I have a few people that they're the glue of the team. It's like, you don't know, you can't define that role for that person sometimes, but it's just the fact that the team gravitates around this person for some reason. And it's the glue of everybody.
Yeah, man. It's the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you can get more than one,
oh man, you're golden.
to win the lottery twice. Yeah, man.
Well, I gotta tell you, so we are a business of languages. So we help people communicate. Excuse me. So when you were growing up, you say your father was from Ecuador.
Yeah.
And he's from Ecuador. And did he immigrate or okay. did he find a challenge with the language, or you could say, were you one of those interpreter kids that you had to go to the appointments,
No.
help them out?
No, no.
No documents, no nothing.
My dad was pretty cool with that. I mean, it's funny. My dad is 69,
Okay.
I believe. He still has an accent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is funny because he came over here as a teenager.
yeah, but
It's hilarious. I'm not busting on my dad, but I'm like, man, Pops, you've been here for how long?
But my dad, growing up, he went. When I was growing up, I just saw him going to different schools, institutes, whatever he did. Like he graduated from 3, and then he still can't get the language.
Yeah, I guess it just happened.
Yeah, it's just a person thing. So it's like you say, sometimes the accent sticks, but it's just the way that you communicate. But if people are understanding you, might as well. But we have a lot of different situations, especially in New York, when you have all these parents that are that immigrate, and they have this situation where they're going to doctor's appointments, they're going to courts, they're going to do this. Here in the city as well, we see it. People that need to communicate, they need to learn the system. So sometimes it's really hard. You have these kids that are just we call it translated, but translation for us is documents.
Yeah, right now.
So interpreting, so kids go to interpret to meetings and things like that. So it's just like a little difficult. In that sense, how important do you believe, or I know I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but how important do you believe communication is for someone who is up and coming in a new environment? Like, let's say, for example, you went to Florida, but someone that comes to a different country, how important communication do you think it would be for them?
I think it's everything, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how can I put it in a way? All right, if I went to Ecuador,
Yeah.
I would never expect them to just speak English, right? I'm in your land.
Okay.
I'm in your place. So
Yeah.
I need to learn Spanish, at least your version of it, because there's different versions of it.
Yeah.
Because I just want to be able to communicate. Right?
Absolutely.
And the reason why I want to communicate is because I need to live.
Yeah.
Like I need to do certain things.
Yeah.
Like, I need to ask people for directions. I need to be able to ask for something off a shelf in a store because I'm looking for it and I don't see it anywhere.
Absolutely.
You literally need it for your everyday life. So communication is key.
Yeah.
If I can't communicate with you, I can't evolve in the place that I'm in.
That's very true.
And the crazy thing is that I did, see that you guys are doing translation on paper and it's different languages, but you can go ahead and say that about people that already talk the same language, yet they don't communicate to themselves in the same room.
Yeah.
And bad things, even happen there.
Yeah.
It's like marriage. If there's no communication, there's no fighting, it's a terrible marriage.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've always said that.
Yeah.
I'm like, if you're not fighting, you're not communicating. If you're not communicating, call it a day.
Yeah.
Okay, just let it go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because then you guys are just angry at each other internally or whatever your problems are. Communication is key. Communication is everything. Communication is part of your everyday life.
Yeah.
If my dad, I think my dad knew that. And my mom knew that. My mom was born in Brooklyn. My mom is blonde hair, blue-eyed, white,
Gotcha.
And she knew that she had to communicate with my dad's family. Yeah. Said there would be harmonious living.
Yeah.
Like my mom got pregnant, she was 19. My grandfather said, get the hell out of my house.
Wow.
This is old school, right?
Yeah, of course.
So my grandfather was angry, wanted to kill my dad.
Yeah, of course.
Classic thing,
the classic thing,
right?
Story.
And the funny thing is that my dad lived, I think, 3 houses away from my mom in Astoria, Queens.
Okay.
So my mom went to go live with my dad, and now my mom's like, everybody talks Spanish. I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
And my mom, in that situation, knew I need to learn how to communicate.
Right.
If I can't communicate with his family, how's this going to work out? Yeah. So she learned how to speak Spanish. And she talks great Spanish, man.
Nice.
It puts me to shame. My mom, I asked her, I was like, how'd you even learn this? She's like, talking to your grandmother, talking to your aunts, and watching novelas.
Yeah.
That's what she did.
Yeah.
Every day. And that's how she learned. And my dad, I think, did the same thing because not that he could communicate with my mom better, but my dad was from Ecuador. He now lived in America. He knew that if he was going to elevate himself or get a better job to take care of his family, do whatever he has to do, he needs to know the language.
Absolutely.
So he can get ahead.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what my dad did.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, communication is, it's everything. you can't get around it.
Exactly.
You know?
And the reason why we exist as interpreters, translators, whatever you want to call it, is because of that lack of communication and the fact that people get in their way to learning it. So communication is important. It's paramount. It's vital. So if you have an emergency or if you have to go to the courtroom and something happens, you get a ticket, whatever, sometimes even speaking the same language, you're not understanding what's going on.
Right on.
So, I mean, in the meantime, there are tools to support people that are learning or that are trying to do so. Because again, we run into things, for example, we think that people only learn the language when they're here, for example. But I gave you the example of my dad. My dad never thought that he was going to live in the U.S. I never thought I was going to come and live here. And I learned the language on the island. There's thousands and thousands of people that do that. But when you come to a different country and a different environment, it's like you have to learn a new system. And you have to deal with taxes. You have to deal with snow. You have to deal with the city ordinances. You have to deal with the state laws. You have to do this. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So it's while that happens, obviously, it's always to have some type of support. I have friends that their parents are still learning English. They're going to RAC.
No.
So they're working, they're communicating, but there's still like a little bit of a push that they need for certain things. So it's funny to see that sometimes the only resource that they have is their kids. So, but in the meantime, you know, at least they find a way.
Right on.
But in that same tenor, if you were able to have a conversation with anybody in the world, any language, if language was not a barrier, any person in the past, present, who would you like to have a conversation with?
It could be anybody, like living or dead.
It could be anybody.
Jeez, that's a killer question.
I know, because I know that you have a lot.
Well, my first thing was Freddie Mercury from Queen.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I would want to sit down and talk to him.
It's so funny. I saw like an interview of him like 2 days ago. Like it was just a quick thing on YouTube. It's weird that you mentioned him.
Yeah, Freddie Mercury was. I mean, I love Queen. They're a great band, but
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would love to talk to him. He dealt with a lot in his life.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, his dad wasn't so supportive of what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
He tried to be in bands, and people were making fun of him because of his teeth.
Yeah.
You know, and then obviously people started making, you know, or jokes or comments about him because he was gay.
Yeah.
You know, when he was older. But, you know, I would love to just ask him, as a person who had to deal with those kinds of things, like, you know, how did you get through those moments of like being made fun of, no support from your dad, having people make fun of you because of your sexuality? Like, you know, how do you get through all that? And still, with all that on his brain and on his back and all that stuff, he became one of the most greatest frontmen of all time.
I still remember to this day.
One of the greatest songwriters of all time.
Absolutely.
I mean, Bohemian Rhapsody was his opus. That was like his greatest work.
It's beautiful.
You know, and people always ask me, like, I think one time somebody said, you know, what would be the first song you would play for aliens if they ever visited Earth? And I was like,
it's like, this is it.
It's like the perfect song. You know, so I would love to either talk to him or John F. Kennedy.
Wow.
Would be the other one.
Okay.
Yeah, just because of, you know, what we know now about, at least for me, what he had to deal with as far as government. And government pretty much, in my opinion, all right, I don't care what anybody else thinks, I believe the government killed him because he was not conforming to what they wanted to do.
Okay.
So I would love to just pick his brain about why he wanted to do certain things and what it was like knowing that the government was essentially just against you.
Yeah.
How he had to have enough courage to deal with that every day.
Yeah.
You know, and then unfortunately he gets assassinated, and then his brother the same thing a couple years later.
Yeah.
Because he was probably going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So those two figures in history, I guess, would, you know, be cool to sit down and have a conversation with.
I like it because for some, the two people that you picked are, in a sense, just rebels in their own way. It's not conforming to the status quo or what I have to do. It's just basically people that did their own thing, despite the circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, just it's just unfortunate how one was actually assassinated and one just fortunately died of a disease.
Yeah,
but both of them are. It's one of those things, though. Also, like somebody said once, "It's better to burn out than to fade away."
Yeah, absolutely.
Goes. They're timeless now.
Absolutely. So they're still remembered and they're admired by so many people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that will wrap it up for today. I really, really appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate you being so responsive. It's been an honor to have you here. I hope that you have fun because I really enjoyed the conversation with you.
Pleasure was all mine.
I know that this is not the last time we see each other. So, I mean, I'm glad that I got to know you better.
Right on.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Hey, man, I appreciate you asking me. I always get a kick out of these things.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, why would you want to talk to me? So I appreciate you. Thank you for the kind words.
Thank you.
At the end of the day, I'm just Fred, man. Regular guy.
We like you, Freddy.
Thank you.
Thank you.